I still remember the sound of the lockers more than anything else. Not just the metal slamming shut, but the echo that followed. The way it seemed to chase me down the hallway like it knew exactly where I was going. Every morning felt like stepping onto a stage I never auditioned for. I'd walk into the classroom and feel it immediately. The whispers starting before I even reached my seat. The laughter that tried to pretend it wasn't about me. The sideways glances that lingered just long enough to remind me I didn't belong. I was never loud. I wasn't disruptive. I didn't talk back or cause trouble. If anything, I tried too hard to stay out of the way. My clothes were always a little wrong. Too big, too old, clearly chosen by someone who didn't understand what kids were supposed to wear. My voice came out shaky when I spoke, so eventually I learned it was safer not to. I kept my head down, shoulders slightly hunched, like my body was trying to apologize for existing. And somehow, that made me perfect. They noticed everything. The way I walked faster than everyone else between classes, like I was racing an invisible clock. The way my hands trembled when I dropped my books. The way I flinched when someone laughed too loudly nearby. What started as comments turned into routine. What started as jokes turned into expectation. It became normal to mock me, comfortable, easy. At first, I told myself it would stop if I ignored it. Adults always say that, as if cruelty gets bored on its own. But it didn't stop. It grew smarter, quieter, meaner. Some kids shoved me in hallways and laughed when I stumbled. Others waited until teachers were turned away to whisper insults just loud enough for me to hear. A few smiled politely to my face while spreading rumors that made sure I always sat alone at lunch. The bruises faded faster than the looks people gave me afterward, the ones that said they'd already made up their minds about who I was. What hurt most wasn't even the bullying itself. It was the way no one seemed to care enough to stop it. Teachers saw it and pretended not to. Adults heard about it and minimized it. "They're just kids," they said. "Try not to take it personally. You'll toughen up." I didn't feel like I was toughening up. I felt like I was disappearing. Every day, I carried the humiliation home with me like something heavy lodged in my chest. I'd sit in my room and replay conversations over and over, wondering what I did wrong, what I should have said differently, why I was always the one chosen. Slowly, painfully, a thought began to take root. Maybe I deserved it. Maybe there really was something wrong with me. By the time I was 12, my body reacted to school like it was danger. My stomach twisted every morning. My throat tightened whenever someone said my name too loudly nearby. I learned which classrooms had doors closest to my seat, which teachers were least likely to intervene, which hallways to avoid during passing periods. I learned how to become small. And in the center of it all was him. Mark wasn't the biggest kid or the loudest. He didn't need to be. He had something worse: control. Teachers loved him, coaches trusted him, other students gravitated toward him without thinking. He knew exactly how to hurt people without leaving fingerprints. He'd lean in close, just enough that only I could hear him, and say something casual and cruel, like it was advice. "You should smile more. People might like you." Or he'd laugh softly when someone else insulted me, not too loud, just enough to give permission. He never shoved me himself. He never had to. He understood something I didn't yet, that laughter could be a weapon, and silence could be a shield. All he had to do was start it, and the rest would follow. One day my notebook went missing. It was the one place I wrote things down, the thoughts I couldn't say out loud, the feelings I didn't know how to explain. When it reappeared, it was taped to a locker in the hallway, pages torn out, words circled, new insults written in thick red marker. People stopped to read. Some laughed. Some pretended not to notice. I didn't cry until I got home. I cried in the shower so my parents wouldn't hear.
Another time, a rumor spread that I'd said something disgusting about a girl in our grade. I hadn't, but truth didn't matter. The looks I got afterward told me everything I needed to know. Disgust, judgment, distance. Mark watched it all from across the room, his expression calm, satisfied. There wasn't one single moment that broke me. There were dozens, little cuts that added up until I didn't recognize myself anymore. But while they thought they were breaking me, something else was happening, quietly. I was watching. I started noticing patterns, how Mark never crossed lines in front of authority, how he tested boundaries first, then pushed further once he knew he could get away with it. How cruelty spread faster when someone confident led the way. Pain stopped being just pain. It became information. Years passed. School ended. There was no apology, no reckoning, no moment where everything made sense. Just distance. I thought leaving would feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like standing in a quiet room after years of noise. Unnerving, unfamiliar. The bullying stopped, but my mind didn't. I flinched when people laughed behind me. I assumed every pause in conversation was about me. Trauma doesn't end when the environment changes. It just waits. I didn't rebuild myself all at once. There was no dramatic transformation. It started painfully small. Holding eye contact for 1 second longer than felt safe. Sitting up straight instead of folding inward. Forcing myself to speak even when my voice shook. At night, I practiced conversations alone. Saying no out loud. Saying I disagree. The first time I actually did it in real life, my chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. But I survived it, and the world didn't collapse. That realization stayed with me. I started reading obsessively, psychology, communication, human behavior. I wanted to understand people the way Mark always seemed to. I learned that confidence wasn't loud, that power came from certainty, not aggression, that calm made people uncomfortable when they expected fear. Slowly, things changed. My posture, my voice, my thoughts. On the outside, I looked normal. On the inside, I was rebuilding myself brick by brick. Years later, I had a job, a routine, a life that felt stable enough. I thought the past was behind me. Then I heard the laugh. It was at a networking event. Cheap drinks, forced smiles, loud conversations that blurred together. The sound hit me before I saw him. My stomach dropped instantly. When I turned, there he was. Older, sure, but unchanged in all the ways that mattered. Same confidence, same effortless way people leaned toward him.
Our eyes met. His smile paused for just a fraction of a second before whitening. "Well, I'll be damned," he said as he walked over. "Didn't expect to see you here." My body reacted before my mind could catch up. Heart racing, palms damp. For a moment, I was 12 again. But this time, I didn't look away. "Yeah," I said calmly. "Small world." Something flickered behind his eyes. Confusion. He laughed it off, but I noticed the shift. The way he studied me, like he was searching for something familiar that wasn't there anymore. Over the next few weeks, our paths crossed again and again. Same industry, same circles. Mark started testing me the way he always had. Jokes at my expense, stories where I was still the punchline. People laughed, like they always did. But I didn't shrink. When I didn't react, he escalated. Rumors, subtle doubts planted about my competence, questions about my reliability. Opportunities quietly disappeared, meetings I wasn't invited to, conversations that went silent when I walked in. Then came the performance review. My work was solid, the numbers were there, but the feedback wasn't about performance. It was about perception, concerns about how I was seen. I walked home that night in silence, sat in my dark apartment and stared at my reflection in the black screen of my phone. For the first time in years, that old voice tried to come back, the one that told me this was just who I was. And then it stopped. I realized Mark hadn't changed at all. He was still the same person who needed someone beneath him to feel tall. The only reason he still had power was because I was letting him play the same game. I wasn't weak anymore. I was invisible. And invisibility is power. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I planned.